let's get back to It's Just Joe on Disney Channel.
Yeah, what's good? It's Just Joe here, back with another video, and today we're going to be doing the second episode of my series titled Screwed. This time we'll specifically be looking at Disney Channel and Disney XD, but it did not fit the title as well. Shout out to TV Tropes for giving the majority of my info. Also, a quick spoiler warning, as there's a few examples where I will go into spoiler territory when it's absolutely necessary. And let's get straight into episode 2 of Screwed, Disney Channel edition.
I'm Jason Earls from Hannah, Montana, and you're watching Disney Channel.
Now, before we go over specific show examples, let's look at more network-wide screwings that affected multiple shows. Starting with the most common known one, that is the 65 episode rule. I won't go into too much detail about this one, as there is more well known than the others. But basically, Disney used to have a rule, mainly to its Disney Channel shows, where once a show gets to 65 episodes, which is the minimum requirement to get syndication, there's a very slim chance of getting renewed after those 65 episodes, unless your show was proven to be a huge hit. And to be fair, there are pros and cons to that, as you can avoid the show having what I call the Fairy Odd Parents disease of being around for so fucking long that the show gets sapped of any form of passion, heart, joy, or entertainment. However, on the other side of the spectrum, smaller shows who found their way late into the series could be cancelled just when it was hitting their prime. Thankfully, it did get broken with That's So Raven, but still shows were affected by it, with the most notable examples being the likes of the Proud Family, Liz McGuire, and Phil the Future, who especially had the shit end of the stick by being cancelled beyond the 65 episode mark. A lesser known, but more bullshit rule that took place on Disney is that if a live action show has more than 3 seasons, then they would have to pay the cast and the crew more, so Disney would combat by having the show go through title changes, cast changes, and set changes, so they can constitute the shows as new projects, so they don't have to pay the cast or crew more. Shout out to this guy on Reddit for letting me know about that. And it shockingly happens more times than you think. Hannah Montana went through it by removing Mitchell Musso, getting a whole new set, and changing the title of the show to Hannah Montana Forever. Same thing happened to Lab Rats when it switched to the Bionic Island, and even switched its title briefly to Lab Rats Bionic Island. Great creativity on the title, guys. Bunked especially got this treatment, on top of also having the Fairy Odd Parents disease of being way too fucking long. The amount of cast members who left and joined the show over the years is astounding, and by season 4, it wasn't even a Jessie spinoff. What was the point? Also, if you were watching Disney Channel back in 2014 to 2016 and just so happened to watch an animated show of theirs, then you should go to Vegas because you are one lucky guy. As for some reason in 2014, right around the time that they transitioned from the rounded square era to the glass era, which in my opinion was the beginning and the end, they for some reason moved all their animated shows to Disney XD. Like for instance, Gravity Falls, Wander Over Yonder, and Phineas and Ferb. I remember this era in particular because I was watching way more Disney XD than Disney Channel at the time. Of course, I was still watching Disney Channel. I mean, they had Jessie and Austin Alley, but still. I mean, it got to a point where even the up-and-coming animated shows that didn't fit Disney XD's lineup and was initially pitched to Disney Channel, like Sophia the First and Miles for Tomorrowland, were reworked and turned into Disney Junior shows. New animated shows, like for instance Big City Greens and DuckTales, would have points where the show would go on a major hiatus. And I'm talking like a 4 to 8 month hiatus. Now, what was the reason for that? Well, because Disney Channel started implementing a binge-watching strategy where instead of the old formula releasing 2 to 4 episodes at a time, the crew would have to finish 10 episodes at a time, then they would release all of them to air week after week after week, which apparently could take them half a year. On top of that, during those hiatuses, they would also have to do shorts based on the shows to keep the fans engaged. This isn't even speculation either, as co-creator of DuckTales 2017 edition, Francisco Angons, and co-creator of Big City Greens, Chris Hudson, has gone on record about it. Could also explain why the first 10 episodes of Phineas and Ferb Season 5 aired yesterday, actually, at the time of recording it, while we have to wait for a whole month to see the rest of them. Disney Channel also has a habit of airing reruns of its shows either extremely late at night or extremely early in the morning, like Good Luck Charlie, Liv and Maddie, Austin Alley, and it's usually shows that don't do quite as well in the ratings. Oh boy, this one was a doozy. Basically, there's also a period in late 2023 to early 2024 where they did a live action cancellation spree, with most of the cancellations not being confirmed until well after the final episode aired. Let's go through the examples. Saturdays aired its final episode in May, canceled in November. Also, what did not help was the fact that they would do double airings, meaning that they aired for 2 months but got canceled for 6. Secrets of Sulphur Springs aired its final episodes in May 2023, canceled in January 2024. That's a 10-month difference for those who are keeping track. Raven's Home aired its final episode in September 2023, canceled in May of 2024. Pretty Freaking Scary aired its final episode in August of 2023, canceled in June of 2024, which is again a 10-month difference, and they also, like Saturdays, burned off the episodes 2 at a time during its time, and was also removed from Disney+. The Villains of Valley View was the last victim by airing its episode in December, then canceled in October, with yet another 10-month difference, which made it so that Wizards Beyond Waverly Place, the Wizards of Waverly Place spin-off, is the only remaining live-action sitcom on the network. Bunked was the only non-casualty. By it being canceled in December, Bunked was given a 10-episode renewal to properly finish the show off, but not before airing the final episodes back-to-back, as well as airing the finale during the 2024 Summer Olympic Games. Briefly moving on to Disney XD, around the summer of 2013 we would see more Canadian shows be added to the lineup, such as Camp Lake-Bottom, Pac-Man and the Ghostly Adventures, Max Steel, and packages from Planet X. By 2014, Pac-Man was the only show that was still in the lineup with them. Then they soon lost interest in Pac-Man, and by 2015, it was gone as well. Now that we got that out of the way, let's look at more show-specific examples, starting with Wander Over Yonder. Wander Over Yonder was picked up in 2012 and premiered in September 2013, and it was initially going decently. Then all of a sudden, starting January, reruns were getting more and more sparse, to the point where by January 25th, all reruns of the show were just pulled from the schedule, and even new episodes that were set to premiere that February were also pulled. Then a few weeks later, it was announced that the show was moved to Disney XD. However, reruns would still be on Disney Channel as a part of the Disney XD on Disney Channel block. Y'all remember that, by the way? That was such a cool idea, concept, getting to see Kickin' in Lab Rats on Disney Channel. So it was very next level. However, shortly afterwards, the show was removed from the block and consequently was gone from the main network by February 2015, leaving the final 3 episodes of Season 1 and the entire Season 2 a Disney XD exclusive. Then, after Season 2, the network decided that it could not afford to be renewed and was subsequently cancelled. On top of that, despite the fact that the show ended with major plot holes that would have been fixed in Season 3, they still advertised the Season 2 finale as the series finale. Disney XD then proceeded to remove it entirely from the schedule, however reruns did come back in around 2017. Another good example is The Ghost of Molly McGee, when the network's executives decided that the show would be cancelled in June of 2022. This is right after they renewed it for a second season and a month before the first season ended. It was even far enough to the point where Disney would commission the first 10 episodes of a third season. What was the reason then? Well, they for some reason barely marketed the show, on top of not doing enough schedule planning, which forced them to heavily rely on Disney Plus viewership for when they dropped episodes on that stream platform, and when the second round of episodes dipped in viewership for Disney Plus, they decided to cancel it. However, to Disney's credit, like they did with Bunked, they were renewed for one more episode to give the show a proper finale. Haley's On It is one of the most upsetting examples, as the season 1 finale ended on a cliffhanger where, spoiler alert, skip to this time point if you don't want to hear it, Haley still had one more item on her list. This cliffhanger was never resolved, as not only was the show taken off Disney Plus in September, but the show was confirmed to be cancelled a month later. Now let's take a brief break from animated shows to talk about I Didn't Do It. The show had so-so ratings during its first season, but it did develop a cult-like fan base, similar to shows like Better Off Ted. Check out the ABC video if you haven't already. But like I said, it did have a cult following for its very good writing and show format. Then, in an effort to improve on ratings, they not only moved the show to Fridays, but they decided to fire the whole writing team and replace it with Good Luck Charlie's writing team. As a result, not only did season 2 get rid of flashbacks, which made the show somewhat unique, but it also for some reason became very relationship focused. However, there was one major issue, and that was that Disney barely advertised the show, and thus the show was cancelled. Now let's get back to animation, with one of the most controversial ones being The Owl House. Shortly after the announcement that the second season of The Owl House was made, it was announced that the show would wrap up following season 3, which would consist of 3 44-minute specials, which if you turn into standard 22-minute episodes, means that season 3 only had 6 episodes. And while it's unknown whether or not it was the showrunner's idea to end the show after season 3, it is known that the creator Dana Terrence expected season 3 to be the usual 10 to 20 episode format. However, Disney decided to cut it down to just the specials because the show was deemed too expensive and mature to air at that time. The season 2 finale of Amphibia was especially hit very hard, as Disney decided to postpone the release of it at the very last minute. And while it has not been confirmed, the most likely reason for it was due to a scene in which sees Marcy get brutally impaled, with Disney getting uncomfortable with the scene, and so the episode was delayed for several weeks. The change was so last minute that iTunes still released the episode in its original release date before quickly having to remove it. The creators and crew of not just Amphibia but also other shows publicly voiced their displeasure at it on Twitter. The finale did eventually air that May, but with a content warning added to it. Star vs. the Force of Evil also ran into issues around season 4, as moving from Disney XD to the main network didn't really do much, especially since new episodes would air Sundays at 8 AM before it's actually moved back an hour to 7 AM. On top of that, once the show ended, Disney was really fast to remove it from its lineup, as it was removed just 2 weeks after the show ended. Phineas and Ferb also suffered problems right in the middle of season 2, as new episodes would suffer from very heavy delay, to the point where some countries would air the new episodes months before premiering it in the US. The spin-off to Phineas and Ferb, Milo Murphy's Law, also suffered hard. It debuted in October 2016 with a lot of support. After airing a whole month's worth of episodes, there were 4 months with no new episodes, but still the show seemed poised for great things, as it was renewed for a second season, had a crossover with Phineas and Ferb, and was given a great Saturday morning time slot sandwiched between DuckTales and Marvel's Spider-Man. However, things went downhill when in 2018, not only did the reruns of the show suddenly vanish, but also there was no premiere date for season 2. And while season 2 did manage to air and did have the privilege of moving over to Disney Channel, it premiered in January 2019, which was a whole year and a month since the first season ended. Then the new episodes were given a graveyard slot of 7 AM EST on Saturday morning. One of the most infamous examples of fuck-ups is Jimmy Two Shoes, which is a classic example of American network being given the rights to air the international show, only to do jack shit with it. After Disney XD distributed the show internationally and also tried to executive meddle with the setting, Disney XD shafted it by having new episodes be aired at midnight and reruns air at 4 AM. And as a result of that, despite there being plans for a third season, it never became a reality, as the show got cancelled after 2 seasons, despite having a devoted fan base and support over it. Anyways, that's all for this edition of Screwed by the Network. Or just simply Screwed. I don't know why I said Screwed by the Network. It's Screwed. This took a while. We're almost at 1,000 subscribers, guys. Please. I'm telling you, if I reach 1,000 subscribers, that'll be crazy. Thank you guys for watching. You can like, comment if I need to change anything. I'd really appreciate the work. And subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you.